I used to think that being tired all the time just meant that I was working too much. And you may have felt that yourself, where we're going through our days working, and either it feels like we're working too much or we're just overdoing it in these different places. Now, what I noticed was that even after I would get 8 hours of sleep or drink gallons of caffeine, have the weekends off, maybe even take a vacation, that none of it even touched that bone deep exhaustion that we all feel when we're in that moment. I know I drag through the day wondering what's wrong with me. And you and I both understand that, that's something that we can't just keep doing to sustain the impact that we want to make. Well, it turns out I wasn't being overworked. I was misaligned. And you may have felt that yourself. Misalignment, it will drain you faster than any late night ever could. Now, the big difference between being physically tired with, and such is sleep. It can fix it. Taking a nap, getting that rest, nutrition, recovery, all that type of stuff. But misalignment, that's like a soul tiredness. That's what happens when your daily life is just contradicting the gifts and superpowers you have, your values, your purpose, who you are authentically. That's misalignment fatigue. And no vacation, no nap, no amount of caffeine is going to cure that for you. Now, for years, I thought my problem was that it was my schedule, my discipline, my lack of balance that I had. And I tried all the different fixes. And you may notice some of these may sound like ones you've tried as well. I would look at I need better time management or different workouts, tracking my sleep. We've all been down that path, but still feel lifeless because the issue isn't how we are managing our energy. It's actually where we're spending the energy. And so that's what we're diving in today. I want to talk about how you're able to break free from that misalignment fatigue that happens. Rediscover the kind of energy that comes only from living in true alignment with your authentic self. Now, with that, let me just start by saying welcome to the Giver Method channel. I forgot to say that. My name is Jake. So glad you're able to be here. I'm going to ask a couple questions that hopefully frame up the conversation and how it's so applicable to each of us, but specifically you and the path that you're walking on. Now, have you ever slept that full 8 hours but still feel wake up feeling completely exhausted, and once again, not body tired, but that soul tired that I talked about? Or notice that some things leave you just buzzing with energy, even when they're really hard to do, and other things leave you dry and empty even though they might be easy for you to do. Or maybe you've caught yourself saying hey, I love my family, but I feel like I've lost myself along the way. Or I'm successful on paper, but honestly I feel empty inside. And that could hit home for a lot of us. If it hits home for you, let me just say there's nothing wrong with you. There's not a laziness or a time management issue. It's not ungratefulness. There is nothing wrong. What you're just probably running headfirst into this idea of misalignment fatigue, and that can show up different ways for each of us. For parents, it might look like you're giving constantly, from that empty tank. Or for an entrepreneur, maybe it's that you're successful, you got things going, but you secretly feel lifeless because what you've built doesn't fit you anymore. Or maybe you're an employee and that you just feel that soul-crushing exhaustion, not from long hours, but from the work simply just doesn't line up with your strengths or values. And so I want to unpack this with you today because I want to see you become the hero in your story. I want to see you step into who it is that you're meant to be and make the impact that only you were born to make. Now, like I mentioned, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder, I'm the author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. Everything we're going to talk about today is grounded in principles from my book, The Giver Method. It's available on Amazon. It came out in November. Right now, you can get it for as little as $2. So I'll put a link for you down in the description where you can go get it on Amazon, or you could pause the video, open up your Amazon app, just go look up The Giver Method by Jake Talbert, and go get yourself a copy. It is the best, $2 that you could invest in yourself. It's going to help you to unpack your gifts, your superpowers, create more impact and influence in your life, more value for the people around you. Make your relationships deeper and more meaningful. Have better connections with those around you, and of course, living a more fulfilled life filled with more joy and delight and the actual satisfaction that you're making a real impact. People love it because it's grounded in my story, and I've walked a similar path to you. I've been on those similar journeys that we all have walked. I'm a parent. I've got 3 boys. I'm an entrepreneur, but I've also worked in that corporate atmosphere in the sea of cubicles that you likely have experienced. And so everything in the book, the stories and all of the action items and exercises, they're meant for people like you and I, people walking this similar path. Because I know that you can't just burn everything down and, go move to the woods and start over. So get yourself a copy. Like I said, the link's going to be down in the description. Now, I know after years of experiencing that mysterious thing, this fatigue that I couldn't really figure out what it was, like that sleep would never cure, I discovered that like exhaustion isn't about needing more rest. It's about needing alignment. And the good news is like I said, not about blowing up your life or abandoning any sort of responsibilities to find that alignment. It's about finding ways to live more authentically, even in the small and doable things that you can do day to day, so that you can like get your vitality back. There's this energy like alignment system that you need to put into place. And so I want to walk you through these 6 areas that are helping parents and entrepreneurs and employees shift from a depletion into really sustainable energy. Think about that energy and what you could do with it when you start giving it back to the people closest to you. There's tons of data out there that shows, like I love grounding the book and all these videos and tons of research and science and all sorts of things, like tons of data out there that says that when people are like, they align just 30% of their daily activities, not everything, just 30% of their things with their gifts and their values, like their energy increases by 156% within 90 days. Most people are trying to nap their way through misalignment fatigue. Well, you don't need a nap. You just need to be more you. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. And by the end, like you're going to know the difference between like the body tired and the soul tired, and how to start moving forward with the kind of life that actually fuels you from there. And of course, like I said, you can dive deeper in the Giver Method. You can go find it on Amazon, the link in the description. You can check out thegivermethod.com, where we have a bunch of other free resources for people, newsletters, all sorts of things like that. You can also follow us on all the different social medias, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all under the handle of the Giver Method. And of course, if you're ready for more personalized attention, I do have one open coaching spot for an 8-week session where we would actually walk you through all the principles within the Giver Method and really slowly take you through that process of, getting you out of that misalignment, find the places that are draining you and really start to really energize you forward in your growth and the impact that only you can make. So there's a link down below that talks about coaching. Hey, if you're watching this and you've got some sort of a community, podcast, event, stage, whatever that may look like, and you're like, man, a message like this or the ones that Jake covers in his channel, like that would really resonate with my people, then check out the link below about speaking and podcasting so that we can, dive deeper into that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, like the video, comment your thoughts along the way. By subscribing, ringing the bell, I record videos all week long, release them, and I would not want you to miss out on anything that I put out there that could really be helping you make a greater impact in the world. And with that, let's just dive right in. Don't want to mess around or skip any more time. Let's get into how you break free from that misalignment fatigue and finally start to be fueled by your own life again. So the first principle, the first area that I want to focus on is you have to check your real energy, not just your sleep. This is how you learn how to read your body's alignment signals that it's giving you. Now, the mistake that a lot of us make is we track energy the wrong way. We count hours of sleep or cups of coffee or how much we checked off on that to-do list that we had, but we never ask the real question of what's actually fueling me or what's quietly draining me dry. There's a huge difference between being tired, because you went really hard at the gym and and big difference between that and you're tired because you went the whole day doing things that just don't fit who you are. One gets better with a nap or a good meal. The other does not budge because it's not your body that is worn out. It's that internal soul, that misalignment fatigue. And so it shows up when you suppress any of your gifts or superpowers, you ignore your values, your purpose, or you keep forcing yourself into roles that don't fit you. Gosh, if you find yourself that you're performing on a day-to-day basis to meet what other people are expecting, you're probably feeling that. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to try this out. For the next week, keep a super simple log of your energy. Before and after main parts of your day, certain projects, family routines, meetings, rate how you feel. And think of it this way, it is a -3 to a +3. -3 is this is soul crushing, draining, to a +3 being soul giving and energizing. Don't ask am I tired? Ask well, what kind of tired is this? Is this is it that satisfying, I gave it my all tired, or is it a heavy, empty tired where you feel less like yourself? Notice whatever patterns start to come up. Parents, maybe it's like bedtime stories light you up, but logistics, grind you down completely. As entrepreneurs, it may be creativity, creative strategy and such, like energizes you, but the back-to-back admin calls like drain the crap out of you. Employees, maybe you're solving problems and that really gets you excited, but sitting through endless status meetings leave you numb. Like, these aren't small details, they're clues. And you can't just stop doing all of them. So we're going to talk more in a bit about other ways to start introducing more of yourself into those things. But once you just start seeing what those patterns are, you can start to do your own like energy map and an energy recovery map, where you write down activities that are constantly recharging you. Not just relaxing ones, but the ones that left you like, where you get to use your natural gifts and you got to feel that energy come back. And then intentionally add more of those into your week where you can, even in the smallest of doses. 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes of something that just boosts your energy, like peppered throughout the week, can really change how you show up in the world and the energy that you have throughout the day. Most people try to solve this kind of exhaustion with the sleep or the nutrition or the vacation. But like, if the problem is misalignment, none of it's going to fix that. When you learn to separate that physical tiredness from soul tiredness, like stop treating your exhaustion like a personal flaw. You start treating it like it's data. Your body literally is handing you the blueprint to like, hey, here's how to be more energized and more aligned in life. You'll be happier and live a more fulfilled life. Your body tells you that. Take that blueprint, run with it. Now that takes us to the second principle, which is like, you have to close the gap between who you are and who you think you have to be. Oh my goodness. Like the hidden costs of living someone else's life, that performance I talked about. Like, let's be real. One of the biggest drains of your energy isn't the to-do list. It's the pressure to be someone you're not. Most of us don't even realize how much energy we burn each day trying to play the roles that we think we need to be, meet the expectations, or fit the boxes that don't actually match who we are. There's a gap there between like your real self and like, the required self. Think of it as like I often refer to it as like there's an authenticity gap. And it's exhausting. The bigger the gap, the more exhausting it is. It shows up differently depending on where you're at. If you're a parent, you feel it when you ignore your natural parenting style to chase that, like the good mom, the good dad, that I should be. As an entrepreneur, like it's when you bury like your true vision just so that you can seem more marketable. Or as an employee, like you feel when your real strengths get like sidelined because job description like that you're stuck in doesn't align with it. Like the wider the gap, the more energy you lose. It's like forcing the square peg in the round hole every single day. It works for a while, but it's going to wear out. So here's a couple things you can do to help with this. One of the simplest ways is to just like spot it. Just start by spotting it. Write down like, when do you feel the most like yourself? Like, when are you feeling the most alive? When are you laughing with close friends? Is it solving problems that you actually care about? Is it doing something that feels effortless? That's your authentic self. And then do the same thing for like the main roles that you play throughout the day as a parent, the employee, the entrepreneur, the spouse, the partner, the community leader, whatever. Like, who do you feel like you have to be in those roles? What expectations push you to tone down what your style is, your natural style, or maybe force traits that don't come naturally to you? That's a required self. Once you have these two lists, compare them. Give each role like a score of 1 to 10 on how closely your required self matches, or how much of it how much your required self aligns with like your authentic self. If you're scoring under a 7, that might be a sign that you're losing a lot of energy in those areas. And then, start small. Think about these other principles we'll talk about in a bit, but like, think about the ways you can start to bring little pieces of your real self into the roles where like the gap is the widest. Maybe you speak in your natural style during one meeting instead of defaulting to that corporate language. Maybe you're being finding ways to be creative with your family, like and the family routines, instead of just grinding through it like it's like a step-by-step thing. Maybe you share real ideas with your boss instead of like always playing it safe. Like these like bridge moves that bridge the gap, like they're just small steps towards closing it, and getting you closer without blowing up everything, and losing all those responsibilities that you have. Because the performance is exhausting. Studies show that like emotional labor, constantly managing how you show up so that you can fit in, is like one of the top causes for burnout and fatigue. And the wild part is most people never connect their exhaustion with that sort of a gap. But when you do, things change. You stop beating yourself up for being tired. You start realizing like you're just burning energy into being someone that you're not. So when we shrink that gap, when your authentic self and shows up and your required self like starts to overlap with that, your energy comes back, your confidence comes back, joy, fulfillment, all of those things. That leads us to the third area, the third principle that I want to focus on. Like, spot where your values and your life are colliding with each other. The deep exhaustion you feel isn't, once again, it's not the sleep, lack of sleep. It's not to-do lists. It's not those sort of like living when you are clashing with what like you believe in, and what matters the most to you. Like when those are like that value collision, like it's when you're doing the day-to-day thing doesn't line up with what you truly value the most. And here's the kicker, like the activity itself might not even be the hard thing to do. It's just that it contradicts with your values and your purpose. It leaves you so drained. And if you think about it, maybe you value creativity in your life, but your work keeps you on spreadsheets all day. Maybe you value deep connection, but you're stuck in with surface level conversations, or you value autonomy, but your boss like micromanages every move. None of those things are bad on their own, but like when they clash with like what your natural programming and wiring is, like they pull your energy down like this invisible weight, because it's usually happening slow and you might not even notice it. You feel exhausted, but you can't explain why. I mentioned that I've been there. And when we feel that, we have to find things we can do. So here's a couple of ideas. First thing you can do, like once again, identify what are your values. What are the things you cherish the most? Top 5 values. What's your purpose? Not what you think your values should be, but like what are the ones that genuinely light you up when you honor them? Creativity, authenticity, growth, connection, freedom. There's all sorts of things. Like you can go use all sorts of online tools for this, or AI tools to help you come up with what these are. Just help you to think through help me break down like what are my top 5 values. And the next, track your week. Like list out all your activities, both work, family, social, personal, and give them a quick score on 1 to 10. How will they align with your values? If something falls under a 5, there's probably like value collision happening there, and that's the sneaky way your energy is kind of being carried off by something else. And then start connecting all the dots. Ask yourself, like, why does this feel draining? Maybe network events wipe you because like they clash with your value of authenticity. You crave deeper connection. Maybe meetings burn you out because like they force you to like conformity when you want to be using creativity. The point is like once you name the collision, you can start to shift. Like you see it, and either you choose a different path, or you choose how you show up differently, and how can I show up in those moments more authentically as who I am. So it's not about just like stopping doing those things. It's how do I shift in it? Something constantly goes against your values. Give yourself permission to say no, or reduce it, or like approach it from a different perspective. Because when your life is constantly pushes against your values, it's like living with the brakes on. The different data and studies out there show that people whose daily lives match their values are less stressed, and they're just way more energized day to day and more satisfied with where their life is at. Your values aren't just nice ideals. They are the fuel. They're the things that push you forward. And when you live in alignment with them, like even the hard work can feel like super energizing as a part of that. Now that takes us to the fourth area that I wanted to cover. So stop hiding your gifts. Your gifts, your superpowers, the things that are so uniquely you, the things that come easy to you, the things that you're naturally good at, the things that you can make an impact. Like stop hiding them. Like they drain your energy when you hide them, when you're not using them. Use them to like shine your gifts out to the world. The fastest way to burnout, like once again, it's not the overworking or anything. It's hiding the very things that make you you. And so your gifts, these things are so natural to you that like if you suppress those, like you're holding back these natural strengths, ideas, creativity, because like you're worried they won't be welcomed, or you're afraid of standing out, or that they don't align with the role that you're in. Like, man, that's gonna sneak up on you. Maybe you're just naturally good at asking questions and listening, but you stay quiet during meetings because you don't want to rock the boat. Maybe you've got this creative streak, but you tone it down at work because like it's not professional. Or maybe you're a natural connector and like you just you keep relationships shallow because that's what you think is expected in the moment. The problem is every time that you hold back, like you're just burning this energy, something that could literally be lighting you up. It takes work to edit yourself and monitor your impulses, and like to present a version of you that isn't real, to perform for people. The more you do it, the more drained you feel, not because you're weak, but because you're working against your just natural wiring that's in you. So start paying attention. let's think about the ways we can work through this. Pay attention to those natural impulses. Notice when you feel the urge to speak up, to share an idea, to connect deeply, whatever. Just stop yourself. Don't judge it, and just notice. Hold on, I've got this thing coming. What is it? And then maybe write it down. Pull out your phone, a journal, whatever. Keep some sort of a gift log, a gift journal. Write down when you expressed your gift and when you suppressed it. How did I feel when I did that? And you'll notice the patterns, certain people or environments where you naturally shut down your gifts versus others where you let them just come alive. And then when you catch yourself holding back, ask a simple question what's it costing me to not express this right now? Sometimes holding back is wise. I get that. But most of the time, it's really draining. If the idea of fully, stepping out feels scary, then try the low-risk experiments that I talk about all the time on the channel. Share a creative, spark in a side project. Speak up with your insight in a safe group setting. Use your natural strengths, in family life first, then bring them back to the bigger arenas. Build confidence in those small and safe spaces before you bring, the full self into the spotlight. And then a real game changer is, you give yourself, write down some some permission statements where you give yourself permission, to do these things. You say things my perspective might help here. Hey, this is what I'm naturally good at, and that matters. I can make an impact. Just whatever that reminder is to yourself, hey, I'm not going to self-edit. I'm going to put myself out there. Once again, suppressing, think about that idea of, if you just drove with your foot on the brake all the time, that's what suppressing your gifts is. You can move forward, but you're going to burn out if you keep doing that. People who use their natural strengths daily, they are 6 times more engaged at work, 3 times more likely to love the lives that they live. And all it does is just change how you're showing up, change how you're using those gifts. Your gifts weren't made, they're not given to you to be buried. They're meant to be used to energize you and to serve others. So stop hiding them. Get your energy back. Start feeling satisfaction of showing up as your real self again. And then the 5th one, there's this little, the alignment experiments we were talking about. I want to dive deeper into that. Find your energy without blowing everything up around you. The myth is I want to do this right away. I want to just break, I need to do this. I need to break free from this misalignment fatigue. It doesn't mean you have to go quit your job or sell your business or reinvent your whole life overnight. The pressure alone keeps you stuck. The truth is, we don't need an overhaul to start to feel that life again. Just the small intentional doses of authenticity built into that current routine that you already have. Those energy vitamins that you're going to take, right? Little shots of alignment that restore your soul while you're still managing everything everything that's on your plate right now. Authenticity isn't about being perfect or dramatic. It's just about finding the simple, those simple moments where you honor your gifts, you show up with real value, and you let yourself, be you for a change. Even for 5 minutes of authentic expression, you can, that can give you more energy than a whole weekend of resting, while you're hiding your true self. And so here's some ways you do that. Number 1, think about start with just some daily doses. Beginning of the day, ask yourself, what's one way I can show up a little bit more like me today? How do I find, if I'm creative, how can I find small ways to bring creativity into work? Or if I thrive on connection, how can I, carve out some genuine connection instead of just maybe some surface? So, how do I do that? Where am I going to do that? Look at my calendar. Where do I see that I could potentially, inject that sort of a thing? And then, try weekly alignment experiments. Pick a week, 1 week, and just, hey, one role of life, one area of life where you're going to be testing, being more authentic. Maybe how you show up in work meetings. And you're going to try your real communication style instead of a safe one. Maybe next week you bring your true values to your family decisions, whatever it is. Week after week, you use your problem-solving skills to help someone instead of just checking off the tasks. These make big differences. They really do. A 5-minute reset break. My goodness, this is huge. Throughout your day, pause and ask yourself, how can I honor my real self for the next 5 minutes? I'm going to step outside. I'm going to just, because I crave nature. Or I'm going to ask some thoughtful questions in this next meeting I have. I'm gonna do a boring task, but I'm gonna do it in a creative way. It's just about your intentionality changing. And then sneak it into what you already do. Once again, don't have to add more to your schedule. Just bring more of you to what you already have. If you're an encourager, add it to the conversations you're already having. If you value learning, approach every routine or task with curiosity. And then pay attention to energy shifts, those little experiments, how they affect you, which ones give you some more spark back. which ones feel like they're maybe draining you again. Like, pay attention to the patterns. Like, let's do the ones that matter most to us and that align with where we want to go. Because like parents, entrepreneurs, employees, like people like you don't have the luxury of these massive resets. We can't just move to the woods to a cabin and go find ourselves. We got responsibilities, right? But you don't have to, but what you do is you have the ability to just slip into these small, like powerful little things throughout the day, these experiments, like, to build real energy, build more resilience. The data out there, once again, I love studying for these videos because it just gives me so much more like data points to fuel it with. Like, so data out there shows like 15 to 20% increase of authentic expression. It can create 60% improvements in energy and life satisfaction. Not a full lifetime, like a full-time overhaul, just small, steady wins. When you do, you realize like you don't have to choose between responsibility and authenticity. You just show up for the people, who matter most to you while showing up for yourself. And when you do, everything else, like the parenting, the relationships, the work, just starts like feels like you're going to be running with more fuel. And the sixth and final one, build the life that fits you, not the other way around. This is the real win. Breaking free from this like misalignment fatigue isn't about chasing these temporary fixes. It's about designing a life that naturally fuels you instead of constantly draining you. If you think about it, if every day feels like you're pushing uphill, like it's not because you're weak, it's because the way your roles, routines, responsibilities are structured and they're like working against your natural flow. People who thrive long term don't push harder. They design systems, habits, rhythms that like make their authentic self be the living default that they have. When your life is built around your natural strengths, those values, those energy patterns, even hard things are more doable. Because they connect with who you really are. They feel purposeful, not soul crushing. So here's a couple things to try. Take an honest look at your life. Like where are things working for you? Where do you feel like you're grinding down? Work, home, relationships. Which parts, can you be yourself? Which parts do you have to force someone else's mold onto yourself? Find the ways to redesign the roles around your strengths. Parents, instead of dividing household tasks equally, divide them by energy. Who's naturally gifted at what? Entrepreneurs, look at your business and ask, like, am I building this the way that actually lights me up, or am I stuck, just with the tasks that shrink me? And as an employee, like, where can I advocate for responsibilities where I can use my gifts? Create authenticity, like systems. Don't just hope that you'll make time for what matters. Like, bake it into your schedule. It could be a weekly reset where you do something that energizes you. It could be a monthly check-in where you look at your values being honored. It could be daily peppering in these little 1 minute, 5 minute things that bring more of yourself back in. And then you have to create boundaries, energy boundaries. These like sort of ideas, these like defenses that they're the things that keep draining you, they're consuming all the fuel. Like, it might mean that you're saying no to things that constantly deplete you, or you carve out time in the week that's like, this is mine and I'm protecting it. I'm not going to let other people take this time. Telling your family, your team, whatever, like, hey, here's what I need to show up as my best in these moments. And then plan for evolution, not overhaul. You don't need to blow up everything to do this. Like, just start where you are, map out small transitions, and move towards that authentic like structure little bit at a time. And over time, like, it will happen. Stability and alignment, like, they grow side by side as a part of that. You're like, when your willpower is going to run out, like a system, a process, it doesn't. And here's the part that matters most. When you create structure that supports like the real you stop having to choose between your responsibilities and authenticity. You get to do both. You can lead, you can parent, you can work in ways that not only like fill your commitments, but like give you life instead of stealing it from you. You become a walking permission slip for the people around you, like, as well, to be like, oh my gosh, I guess I can do both. I can be authentic and fulfill the roles that I have going on around me. Now, here's what I want you to hear, like, loud and clear. That exhaustion, I mentioned earlier, I called it the bone-deep exhaustion that you're carrying. Well, it has nothing to do with laziness, weakness, ungratefulness, anything. It's because you've been trying to run a life, like, with sheer willpower instead of plugging into what actually fuels you, your authentic self. And things we walk through the day, the soul, tracking your energy, your soul energy, spotting these gaps, the authenticity gaps, building life structure that fits you. Like, they're not just hacks to make you feel less tired. They're a real roadmap for breaking free from that misalignment fatigue and creating energy that lasts so much longer. When you learn the difference between physical tired and soul tired, everything will click and you start catching those gaps, the value collisions, you stop dimming your natural gifts and let yourself experiment a little bit more. Like, you're going to live more authentically, even in small ways. You're going to remember what it feels like to be fueled in your own life again. that's when you start to shift. Your fatigue, like, it stops being this heavy burden and it starts becoming the feedback that you need, the data points, the blueprint. Your energy doesn't come from, caffeine or white knuckling through everything. It comes from alignment. And maybe, like, more importantly, like, you stop feeling like you're just surviving your own life and you start actually living it as like the real you. And the truth is, misalignment fatigue isn't failure. It's an important guidance system. It's flashing red lights pointing you back towards the people, the activities, the choices that give you so much life. And so, these principles, they're not like what they're about, like not just beating exhaustion, but let's build the life that energizes you so much more. A life that values, like, your values are guiding your days. Your gifts are always in play, and your authentic self is like front and center on stage. Is your real self, like, that's not a luxury that you get to explore someday. It's the foundation of your energy, your relationships, and the impact that you want to make right now. Because the world doesn't need more people running on empty, trying to nap their way out of tiredness. You're the only person who has your exact combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences. So you are the only person who can make the impact that you were born to make. The world needs you, awake, aligned, and showing up as like who you really are. Now, if this landed for you, please, once again, go down the description, grab a copy of The Giver Method. It's on Amazon. Go get yourself a copy. You can go to Amazon and get that. You can go to thegivermethod.com, learn more about us. You can find us on all the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those places. And of course, if you're living that, drained life, drained energy, you see that misalignment and you're wanting to go find your gifts and start to build into the life that you want, check out those coaching spots that I opened up. Like I said, link down in the description. If you lead a team, run a podcast, host an event, have a community where this message could serve your people, then I'd love to bring the work to them in ways that are practical and real. Check out the link about speaking and podcasting. As always, drop your biggest takeaways in the comments. I love hearing what sticks. Hit like, subscribe, tap that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on the videos I put out all week long. Just keep things going. Your authentic self is the source of your sustainable energy. Your gifts, they're not meant to be hidden until life gets easier. They're given to be expressed because, like, that's where your vitality lives. The person that you want to become, the person you're stepping into, is there just waiting on the other side of some very small choices that are going to fuel you instead of drain you. So stop trying to rest your way out of soul tiredness. Start living your way back into energy and alignment. With that, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for taking the time, investing yourself in watching this video. Hopefully we will catch you in a future one. Keep watching, keep sharing your gifts, keep being out there, making the impact that only you can make. And we'll see you real soon in one of our next videos. Have a good day.